You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Close for Chiro, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Imaging Services, Chiro Thin, Universal Tractioning Systems, Chiro Moguls, Zingit Solutions, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Evers Coaching Systems, Rhino Coaching, Chiro Matchmakers, Bax Max, 5-Star Management, and the Goodman Factor. Let's hustle. So welcome to the Chiro Hustle live stream. This is an afternoon edition. This is a self-sponsored Chiro Hustle live stream, and it's brought to you today by Chiro Hustle Digital Ad Agency. I'm going to float our web address on the bottom of the screen here, just so you guys know where to go for the goods. And today I have Robert Ferguson coming in from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California. And I am coming in from Grand Junction, which is in the Grand Valley on the western slope of Colorado, which I like to say it's where no one lives. And I moved here to hear the birds chirp. And welcome to the show, Robert.
Hey, it's good to be here, man. It's always great to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, you know, I think some of the best bits of what we were discussing got left on the cutting room floor just now.
Well, I'm sure this conversation will go in a direction that people will benefit from. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I know that you've been doing a lot of work over the past, I don't know, how long have you been in the fitness and health industry?
Definitely over 20 years. I mean, I grew up, doing fitness and playing sports, but as a professional, since my days in the Marine Corps. So you're looking at about 30 years, man.
So 3 decades of culmination of efforts to where we are today with you.
Yes. And what's interesting is if you go back 30 years or 25 years, we were leaner as a country or as a world. And even though we have more access to foods that fall into the category of optimizing health, more fitness centers, more grocery stores, more talk about health and wellness. And I bet there's more chiropractors today than there were 20, 30 years ago. The waistline of Americans continues to expand. It's like hypocrisy in action.
Yeah, one of the things I would always tell people just in passing, I always tell people, hey, I don't know if you know this, but we're feeding ourselves sick.
Yes. I mean, something's wrong. And the thing that I always say when people ask me, how can we solve this problem, is I say the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is that the uninformed are being influenced by the misinformed. So there's a lot of misinformation out there that's creating a lack of clarity. And when you don't have clarity, it's kind of tough to be confident,
Mm-hmm. And I know one of the topics that we wanted to discuss today was your network equals your net worth. And I know over the time you've helped a lot of people become the best version of themselves. So let's talk a little bit about some of the amazing people that you've helped on their journey to finding better health.
Well, I love that you bring that up because from a principle standpoint, this could be so helpful for anyone who wants to climb any ladder, whether it's their profession, whether they want to become like a music star, an actor, because it really does come down to often the people that you know. And what I've learned is that when I meet someone like a Ricky Lake or Chuck D of Public Enemy, people of big influence, like the LaToya Jacksons of the world, nurture those relationships and they will open up doors for you to have even more relationships. And I think it works not just with celebrities, but with your local businesses. You go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, not just meet these people, but nurture those relationships and more relationships will come about.
One of the things that you touched on there that I think is something I would like to expound upon is I tell people that they should meet other like-minded businesses in their community and do these type of interviews with them. And they should bring on people that are congruent with their messaging, like the health food store, the CrossFit gym, whatever it might be, the anything with the healthy habits mindset, the yoga studio. You can make a list of people that you could go and interview in your community, and then you build that network like a Chamber of Commerce. But now you broadcast that sidebar conversation to a whole different community, and you cross-pollinate your brand with another trusted resource in your network.
Man, I love what you just said. I mean, what you just said was like a true nugget for anyone who's paying attention, because Jay Shetty, you know who Jay Shetty is?
Mm-hmm.
So I met with Jay not long ago, and that's his entire, his whole philosophy is find people who you're in alignment with as far as your philosophies and interview them and talk to them. And it just opens up things. And so, wow, that was very powerful what you just said. And I think part of how you and I met is because of that principle, right? Miss Kat Sarah, connected us, and here we are having a conversation.
And I think that's just it, is now more people that are interested in what you've been able to accomplish professionally and the people in the lives that you've touched by building your network the way you have. That's also something to be admired, because so many times we go through this world and we don't know who to align with, and we feel lost and we feel alone. And then those negative things start rolling in on us, like this made up thing called depression. And we start getting like, anxiety, and we lose touch with ourselves because we've lost touch with our community.
Right. No, 100%. And I'm actually gonna take some of what you just shared and actually apply it locally, because people are interested in what other people are doing, and who better to interview someone who, who better to interview someone that everything that you're doing is to contribute back to society and to make a positive impact on the people that you come in contact with. So you're right. It's a perfect fit. It's not like I'm going to go and interview a drug dealer who's doing bad. You know what I mean? We're not going to be in alignment.
No, but you do start to realize that the people that you're congruent with, now you create relationships with people. And, they always say, like, on people's deathbeds, what did they wish they would have done more? I think people really wish they would have done more meaningful work, and they would have built better relationships with their community and their kids.
Yep, you're right. I mean, that's why everyone was celebrating Nipsey Hussle. Here's a guy who had, come into some wealth but never walked away from his community, and was constantly putting back energy into his community so he can make a positive impact, not just on the people now, but for many generations to come. So I totally get it. I love it.
Yeah, my brother Dennis, he always tells me, the best thing I like about you, Jim, little brother, is that you never forgot where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll always go back to my old neighborhood, and I'll visit with my mom, and I'll go back to like all the old stomping grounds that I grew up in, and pay my dues to come back and just like be a person that didn't forget where they came from. And I think that with that reference to Nipsey Hussle, one of the things that happened with that dude is Gary Vee came onto him, and Gary Vee was like, "Oh, I like your stuff, man. How can I collaborate with you and your brand and cross brand that into the Gary Vee brand?" Nice.
And you're right. Yeah, Gary Vee has a way of touching a lot of people and getting them to open up their eyes and see things a little differently. So yeah, it's so interesting, like how everything is just like the cream is rising to the top, and people who you would have thought would never, ever have a conversation together are now having conversations.
In alignment.
For a better world. It's awesome.
It's because we're in alignment, and there's this big word that a lot of people don't know what it means. It's called congruency.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find things that are congruent with you, then the motivation of succeeding becomes more fun, because now you're working with like-minded people on a similar journey to you, and you don't have to go back and re-educate people. Like, if I was to date a chiropractor, I would be like the dream companion, okay? Because they wouldn't have to go back and tell me like what it means to live that chiropractic lifestyle. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that, but when you have somebody that's already pre-framed to understand things, you don't have to go back to elementary. You can talk like graduate level talk with people. And I think that that's what happens when you find people that are in that similar flow state that you're in. Now it makes the conversation a lot easier, and you actually talk about new topics rather than rehashing old stuff that we have to do, not we get to do.
No, you're right. You're right on. And and it's really nice to find someone that, there's a congruency that you have with that person, because you could talk about so many things and never be bored. It'll always be something new and fun.
So let's talk about these healthy habits. I know that you said that there's this new thing called the body fat index, and we're
Yes,
moving away from the BMI index. And
yes.
let's talk a little bit about this transition because I was unaware of it until you sent me over that message. So let's talk about that and why that matters.
Well, if you look at the body mass index, which is the number one method used around the world to gather data, that we have now come to a place where we use the BMI as a way to identify or classify a person as overweight, underweight, healthy, normal, etc. Well, it was created in 1833, right? And we know it's outdated. We know it is not something that is accurate when it comes to like body fat or telling you if you're healthy or not. But yet it continues to be like the norm, right? It's the thing that's constantly being used by physicians, I'm sure by chiropractors. But if we were all sitting in a room together, we all would say the BMI is outdated. Well, if it's outdated, what are we going to replace it with? You know, it used to be the hydrostatic tank. That could be expensive. How are you going to have someone, you know, dip them in water so we can find out what their body fat percentage is? Well, there is a new thing coming out called the BFI, Body Fat Index, by a company called Stay Healthy. And the body fat index within 2% will tell you what your body fat percentage is in relationship to a DEXA scan, which is the number one method used to tell a person what their body fat percentage is. So the BFI is that thing through an app, right through your phone, that will tell you what your body fat percentage is. And then it has what they call augmented reality. And augmented reality is you could hit a button and you can actually see what your heart looks like based on your body fat percentage. You can see your pancreas, you can see your kidneys, you can see your liver. And that is huge because now you can see the progress of how you're getting rid of excess fat in your organs. And you can see it on a timeline. That's pretty motivating. It's kind of like if you go to your client and you say, hey, you're obese, they will do nothing. But if you tell them they have excess fat, they'll say, how do I get rid of it? And that's the big change that's taking place right now.
And, you know, the things that you were saying is based on conveyor belt systems, the old school dogma of this is what you do for eating, the old school dogma of this is how you measure somebody's health, like the health grades.
Mm-hmm.
And now you fast forward us to 2019, and you basically said you can do all this from something in your pocket. And I think that when you think about us having somebody giving us permission, back in the day, we had to get permission from somebody to know this information. Now we have information at the tips of our fingers at lightning speed.
Lightning speed. I mean, and it's a game changer because, you know, if you, like, for instance, if you and I went to our doctor, they'll check our weight and they'll check our height. And then they'll look at that measurement and tell us if we're overweight or underweight. Well, what is that based upon, right? It's excess fat that could be causing my blood pressure to elevate. It's excess fat that could put me closer to having the condition of having dementia. It's excess fat that is interfering with my ability to sleep. So if I can get rid of the excess fat and have a way of measuring and tracking that, man, life is going to get better in so many areas. And then it's not just about vanity. It's about my health. And when you can see what your organs look like based on your body fat percentage, man, that will move you. I mean, that can move you to like want to become healthier. And so I believe that the BFI is going to change how everyone looks at weight loss also, right? Because if you wanted to do keto, or if you wanted to do paleo, if you wanted to do Weight Watchers, whatever weight loss program you want to do, if you measure and track your body fat percentage, it will tell you if that weight loss method is working or not. And then you can adjust. And that's where we're ultimately going to find ourselves, is focusing on getting rid of excess fat and then becoming healthier. And I don't know, I mean, we're both pretty young guys, but do you remember Jim Fixx, the real famous runner in the 70s?
I don't.
Okay, so Jim Fixx was a fan of the chiropractic world. Let me just say that real clear. And I know that for a fact. But Jim Fixx is the guy who put running on the map. He was like a real life Forrest Gump. He would wake up, you know, and see that he was overweight and was feeling horrible. His nutrition habits were all over the place. He smoked packs of cigarettes throughout the day, and he just started running. And next thing you know, he was lean. He had books. He's on Johnny Carson. He's on shows. He's traveling the world. And one day he goes for a run, Mr. Lean, and he has a heart attack and he dies. And when they did the autopsy, they found out that he had 3 blocked arteries. Well, he had what they call TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. He had never looked at his body fat percentage because on the outside, based on BMI, he was normal. He was healthy. But what he wasn't aware of is that his nutrition habits hadn't really changed. And most of the weight he was losing was muscle, bone, and water, and keeping it off because of his activity. But he had fat on the inside. And if he had been looking at his body fat percentage, he would have known that he wasn't as healthy as the BMI said he was. And that's when the game starts to change.
And one of the things that you said there, I'm just going to talk to people, is there's 2 types of fat. There's visceral fat and there's adipose fat. The adipose fat is the stuff that's on your belly, but the visceral fat is the stuff that chokes your organs to death. And I think that when people think about it from like a vanity standpoint, they want to crush that adipose fat. But when they think about it from a vitality standpoint, they want to crush that visceral fat. So I think knowing that there's 2 different storage units of fat on people is very, it's something that a lot of people may not know. And then when we think about like how to measure ourselves, one of the things I love about chiropractic is bringing it back to the principle is when you have a healthy spine, you have a healthy organ system. Mm-hmm. And the reason they call them organs is because they're organized. And when we have an organized system that is running with proper cellular communication, then we have a fitter, healthier human. So the chiropractic lifestyle isn't only about the removing pain and interference, but it's actually improving the transformation and the transition of information from the body to the brain and the brain to the body, which controls all organ tissue and cell function. So when we talk about making a healthier human, yeah, we want to focus in on that adipose fat, but we really want to hit that visceral fat. But we also want to make sure that we have that person in alignment to where that now we optimize that human for their personal potential. Because the things that you're going to find in Jim Fick, you might not find in Robert Ferguson. And the things you find in Robert Ferguson, you might not find in Jim Chester. So there's these different divisions of our own fingerprint that makes us unique. So some of the things that you might be predisposed to, I might not be, but vice versa. Now we have to start a concierge style of understanding of what is going on in that one person's biology and what's going on in their physiology, and how can we repair both of those to give that person a better outcome, which is quality of life.
Right. So yeah, I love where you're at, and I love the idea of chiropractors. Like, I believe they will jump on this BFI because it'll make it so much easier for them to give more to their patients. And up until now, nothing has really been available. I always think of like a woman who I know who's in her late 60s. She goes to the doctor, her regular physician doctor, and the doctor says your blood pressure is elevated. So he prescribes her blood pressure medication. Well, based on the BMI, she appears to be normal. She's lean. She's not overweight, but her blood pressure is elevated. Well, come to find out, she goes and gets a DEXA scan done, and we find out that she has excess fat around her kidneys. And excess fat around your kidneys will drive your blood pressure to be elevated. So now she's stuck on this medication for probably the rest of her life that can lead to stroke and all type of cardiovascular issues. Whereas they were treating the symptom, and if they had looked at her body fat percentage, they would have seen that it was elevated, and then they would have said, hey, let's get rid of some excess fat, and then you don't need medication. You see what I mean? It's like a lot of times it's right there, but we don't question the physicians. And what I've learned about chiropractors is that, they are very clear. If they know something and are aware of something, they run forward to tell you that, well, before we treat the symptom, here's some things that we can do that may actually put you in a position where you're less likely to need medication. And, spine health, neck and spine alignment, all of that is very, very, very important in optimizing overall health. So I love the field. I love the profession of it. And I'm looking forward to doing more and more work with chiropractors.
And that's one of the things when we first got together, we didn't know really how we were going to make an impact on each other's lives or help each other to the greatest capacity. But what we did realize is that there was a congruency there for helping more people. And if we could figure out how to cross pollinate my message with your message, now we can bring in a larger group of people that we can have influence on with truth. And a lot of times I tell people, Robert, is most people don't do anything about their health is because they don't know where to go or who to trust.
Right.
And fundamentally also, if we don't tell them the truth about chiropractic, someone else will mislead them with drugs or surgery.
Yep.
So if we don't stand up for what we believe in, we know that gets positive outcomes, then we see the culture getting sick around us constantly. It's not only through feeding ourselves sick, but it's through taking something to cure something that, like you said, now they're on this damn thing the rest of their life.
Right. Which is horrible for so many people, but they're not going to question it because they don't know. It's time for we got to shake things up around here, Jim.
and something I learned when I worked in a practice, Robert, was they call it a white coat syndrome. Like when somebody has so much anxiety about a physician that they'll pass out.
Wow.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Close for Chiro, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Imaging Services, Chiro Thin, Universal Tractioning Systems, Chiro Moguls, Zingit Solutions, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Evers Coaching Systems, Rhino Coaching, Chiro Matchmakers, Bax Max, 5-Star Management, and the Goodman Factor. Let's hustle. I think that now people are having that type of long-term effect that they've been misled for so long that white coat syndrome should be something else, that people have been fleeced for the longest time saying that you got to be doing this and this and this to get healthy, when what they really don't realize is that the number one doctor is the one inside of you.
That's right. And as you may know, the word doctor from its root meaning is teacher. So it's all about sharing the good news over the diet blues, right? It's about, passing it forward and helping people like live their best life without feeling deprived or restricted or, walking around hungry.
Amen. So I know that one of the topics we were talking about, I know we're almost up on our time together today, but let's talk about what you learned from Jack LaLanne, who is maybe one of the most famous chiropractors of our era.
Jack LaLanne, I was very fortunate to meet him originally at the age when he was 88 years of age. And my first day with him, I learned a whole bunch of things. And then I developed a friendship and a relationship. But one day we were sitting down in the living room talking, and he knows I had a little cauliflower on my ears from wrestling. And he goes, "So Robert, you wrestled?" I go, "Yes, sir." He was always animated, even in private. And he says, "Yeah, I used to wrestle too." And I go, "Wow, so do you wrestle anymore?" I'm looking at this guy because he was still really fit. And he goes, "Well, one day my manager came to me, and my manager says, 'Hey, Jack, do you want to be respected and for your nutrition and your fitness and how you're helping people lose weight and be healthy?' He goes, "Yeah, that's why I'm doing what I do." And then the manager goes, "Well, do you think all those women want to listen to a wrestler when it comes to their nutrition and their health?" And Jack was like, "Probably not." And he never wrestled again. His brand was then defined, and he got the jumpsuit, and he never wrestled again because he wanted to be that person that connected with people they could relate to so that he could help them. And he did that. And, I think even to this day, he and his wife, Elaine, they had the longest running TV show on air for over 50 years. Amazing. And Jack, was an amazing person. I mean, I watched him do some amazing things at 88, 89, 90, 91. We lost him at the young age of 96. But he taught me a lot, man. And branding was one of them.
And that's the thing, is what you just told me, is he developed radical clarity.
Yes.
And I think we had a conversation before we got started as well. Like I said, most of the good stuff got left on the cutting room floor. But when we talked about it, there's two divisions in chiropractic. There's the objective straight, and then there's the mixer. And if we think about it from like a philosophical standpoint, like we have families that are objective straights, and then we have the mixers. And I think that if we were more straight lined with our ethical approach to raising healthy families and healthy communities, then we would settle for a higher level standard. And we would mix a whole lot less with poor food, poor behaviors, poor thinking, poor banking. And I think that we allow ourselves to live in this poor mixer mentality rather than an objective straight that sees clarity and has radical clarity. And you have to develop your own self brand for your family, man. And I think that when we think about, developing identity for like what your career means, hell yeah, that's important. But when it comes to like what you mean for a standard of how you treat your kids and how you show up, how you develop your career, I think we need to go more towards a congruent, objective, straight type behavior pattern instead of this mixer idea that feeds our kids what they think that they want, and then they become the boss of the family.
Yeah, well, that's very true. And just to add additional clarity to what you're saying, like in my profession, I'm on the straight side, meaning I specialize in weight loss. That's my business, right? It's called Diet Free Life. I'm not a chiropractor. I'm not a judge. I'm not a I'm not a chef down the street. I'm not a guy who does crafts. I do weight loss, and all framed around this whole lifestyle of living a diet-free life. And what I've learned is that, and through Jack as well, if someone comes to me and then I'm selling them Hershey Kisses, then now I'm a chocolatier. You know what I mean? It's like what is your brand? And if it's clear, then you're more likely to attract more people than if it's distorted or there's a mixture sometimes. And I'm sure there's people who can make it work as a mixture, meaning they can be all things to all people. But I've seen more success when people are very focused, and then they reach a level of high success with that main thing, as you said earlier, like make the main thing the main thing, and then branch off. I always give the example of Queen Latifah. So you know who Queen Latifah is, right?
I think everybody does.
Well, I mean, millennials, they go, well, who's that? It's like, and I say, well, okay. And if they do know Queen Latifah, they may know her as an actress or maybe a singer. And I'll say that Queen Latifah in the very beginning was a female rapper. Mm-hmm. And then she got to a certain level of success and, where people like identified her, certain groups knew who she was. Then she started to become a triple threat. She started to sing. Then she started to act, and then she started to act on Broadway, and she just kind of opened up. But unfortunately, a lot of times people want to go from ground zero straight to a triple threat, and it doesn't work that way. It's like, give yourself time to make the main thing the main thing, and then when you get to a certain place, I think you can diversify, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And, I think that that's a really great takeaway for everybody watching is because so many times people want to elevate themselves to a certain reality, but one of the guys that made a profound impact on me was Dr. John DeMartini, and he said to me that overnight success takes 25 years.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. There sure is.
So it's chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water, and it's about doing the fundamentals the right way. And knowing that you have to know how to run effectively before you can carry a ball and run with it. And I think
love that. Well, hey, Ari, I have a question for you.
Let's do it.
I've been wanting to ask this question to someone who thinks the way you think. And that is like with total clarity and like, let's just be honestly truthful. So as I don't have regular cable TV in my house like you. And I'm pretty new at it still. So I do stream things. I go on YouTube and all that. And so as I flip through all the time, I'm seeing people that I've done work with or have met who are pretty famous people who have written weight loss related books over the years, right? And so the other day I was sitting there thinking, going, okay, in 1985, this person wrote a weight loss book. 1995, they wrote a different weight loss book. 2005, there's a whole nother weight loss book. And it's like they keep changing with the times. And it just reminds, I go, They really did believe in what they were talking about in 95. They really believed in 2005. How can you believe in a methodology or a principle-based way of losing weight so much that every 5 or 10 years you change it?
Well,
where's the truth in that?
I think that the real truth is 1 in 10 people in this nation is diabetic. I think that the real truth in it is that most people are highly toxic from a physical standpoint. Like if we did like physicals on people right now and we were expecting them to join into the military, we couldn't supply enough healthy people to actually protect this nation.
That is true. There's current data that says that.
So when we think about the state of the union, it's regaining our power and strength back and our health back. And I think that that's why for the past 15 years, you've seen the pivot happen with the messaging, because we still haven't gotten to the political level that it needs to go to and make it something that we have more healthy habits indoctrinated into our culture. And honestly, I think when people get health insurance, they should be getting kickbacks for having health club memberships, for buying park passes. And if you want to talk to me about health insurance, insurance is something that you hedge towards to where there's not a disaster. Mm-hmm. And I think that we live in a crisis care type system where the same thing that was happening as a crisis 10 years ago is the same thing that was happening as a crisis 15 years ago. But to create social relevance, we have to recreate the messaging for the current generation. And I think that that's what you're seeing when it comes to the guru developing the systems and the strategies, is it's basically retreading an old paradigm and making it user-friendly again for the next generation.
Well, you bring up health insurance, and I always think of money, and I always laugh inside because when I turned 40, my health insurance premiums went up. So like on one day I'm 39, and the next day I'm 40. I mean, I didn't feel any big difference, right? But now I'm paying more money. So I actually appealed this, and I had to like give them all my vitals, triglycerides, cholesterol, blood glucose, fasting, all of that, as well as my body fat percentage and my BMI. Because based on the BMI, I was overweight, but based on body fat percentage, I was athletic. So once I appealed it, it didn't take but, 4 or 5 weeks. And they actually reversed everything. I got money back, and I still pay that same premium. And that was all based on the fact that I'm aware, I'm knowledgeable. And I think that is key. If people are knowledgeable and aware of what could be, when someone brings something that's injustice, they'll be able to call them on it. And again, it's taking us back to the power of body fat index. It's knowing your body fat percentage, because it's fat. It's excess fat that is associated with so many conditions or diseases. I mean, most people don't know, but 70% of breast cancer is 100% associated with excess fat. 40% of all cancers is linked to excess fat. But no one's talking about excess fat. They're quick to give people titles. You're obese, you're athletic, you're underweight, instead of looking at the real issue, and that's excess fat, and then giving people an opportunity to get rid of that excess fat. That's where everything is going to change. It's going to change as far as the amount of money that we spend, how much money we can keep, where our health is as we grow and mature later in life. All of this is going to come back to our health. And I would also share with you, because I was in a room with some pretty high-powered people a few weeks and months ago that were representing Google, Samsung, Apple, and all of these people were saying that their companies in 100 years are going to be known for their contributions with health. So right now, people think the iPhone is technology. These guys are in the business of better health. And the same thing is going to take place even with Amazon. I mean, why are we now aware that Amazon has bought Whole Foods? It's all going to come back to health, man. And ultimately, everything that we are talking about is going to be a big part of everyone's business, whether you're a chiropractor, whether you're a school teacher. It's all going to come down to getting people healthier.
Well, here's the thing, is it's already established. It's called the chiropractic lifestyle. And
Nice.
these are the 4 pillars: eating right, thinking right, moving right, and getting adjusted. And I've never recommended that lifestyle to anybody that's life got worse. So when we want to think about like healthy habits, you got to eat right, you got to think right, you got to move right, you got to get adjusted. Most of the time, people are desperately pulling at the strings for the eating right, or the thinking right, or the moving right, and they're all fundamentally neglecting the 4th part, one of the most important, that's the adjustment. So when you get under care of a holistic practitioner, they're going to have direct influence on you to start living that Google model or that Apple model or that iPhone model. And this has been stuff that chiropractors has been doing since September 18th, 1894. It's 124 years in the making. So we don't have to go looking for the new place of where that resides. We just have to give ourselves permission to go in and get checked, find out where the health of our nervous system is, because we want to talk about organ outcome. We want to talk about heart disease. We want to talk about fatty control of our organ system. Well, if you don't have a strong functioning nervous system, you know what happens to people when they get autoimmune conditions? They get sick beyond belief and almost die. Mm-hmm. But if we get that person's nervous system under control with moderating what they eat, how they think, how they move, now we can take those cells and regenerate a healthy body going forward, because we changed their epigenetics. We changed, not only people say it's my genes why I'm sick, it's my family why I'm sick. No, it's the lifestyle choices that you pick. It's the things that you put in here. It's the things that you put in here. And it's the things that you put in there. So it's our environment. So if we start changing the environment of the person from a fundamental level inside, now we can change the vibrational tone of that individual through their nervous system. And that's what chiropractors have been doing for the past 124 years. And I think it's really cool now that there are other systems that are starting to assimilate these style of thinking processes, this lifestyle decision-making process. But when I think about it, it all goes back to the bedrock of chiropractic, which is to eat right, to think right, to move right, and to get adjusted.
So let me ask you, why is it then, with all the wonderful things taking place in the chiro world, that it seems like there's this ongoing battle or conflict of interest between physicians and chiropractors? Like, and maybe it's changed, but every time I'm around a physician and I mention, chiro care, they're not real quick to endorse it. And oftentimes the chiropractors are like, well, they're treating the symptoms. That's where you go, like, when you don't know any better, right?
Well, I'll clear it up for you, because I think that it's a paradigm battle. I think it's a dogma battle. And I think that it's still a critical blow that happened to chiropractic back in the 70s when it was the Chester Wilk case against the AMA. I think a lot of times that the medical industry found out that there was no money in health. There was only money in sickness. And if they could control the sick culture with sick props to keep them going, then they would control the money. And there was no there was no money in chiropractic, because they found that chiropractors were helping people naturally, and they didn't have to have external props to keep them going. Mm-hmm. So I think at that point it was a dogmatic battle. And I think as we've developed, it's just because of an identity battle. And I think that the modern day system should be, you should have 2 doctors in your life, one to keep you healthy and one to save you from dying. And I still believe that there's a place for everybody at the table. But I think we need to get the professional's mind right, because what you're talking about is a 1%er of our culture, which is the doctor. And if we have infighting amongst the higher ranks of whatever diplomacy that we believe in, then we have a problem. So if we want to really clear this up, then we have to have professional honesty. We have to have professional admiration. And we have to know that there is a 2-doctor system. And that I bet you that those MDs that might have like a tongue-in-cheek response to chiropractic, I bet you those are the first person and the first people that will go in and get their kids checked, and they'll go in and get their their neck adjusted for migraines because the stuff that they're selling to people isn't working for them.
There you go. Well, let's get some physicians on here and have an open conversation. That would be fun.
Yeah, but I think that that's the truth of the matter, is that we have an uninformed population, and we have infighting in the 1%ers that make the health decisions for the other 99%.
Yep. There's a lot of truth there. There really is. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you having me on. This has been fun.
Yeah, I feel like we enlightened the audience, and I think that there's going to be so many sound bites that we can pull from this and help each other. And just, I think really what we're doing is we're amassing clarity and we're building connection, and that creates legacy. And I really think that when people do have a high level standard for who they spend time with, the outcome is success. And what you said earlier that we really did is we developed a personal brand, just like Jack LaLanne did, just like you're doing. And when you develop radical clarity, that's when you become Ricky Lake. That's when you become Chuck D. That's when you become Queen Latifah. And that's when you supersede anything that anybody ever thinks about you, because you know the truth is there.
Right. Love it, man. Well, let's keep living in truth and spreading the good news about the Chiro hustle, baby.
Well, thank you for being our guest today, Robert. It was such a pleasure sharing your message with our audience today. And if you guys want more information on what we do, come over to chirohustle.com, do a test drive of our website, listen to some of our episodes, subscribe to our channels. And if you guys want help with digital ads, the logo's been floating above me this whole time. It's Chiro Hustle Digital Ad Agency. I would like to be your trusted resource to grow your chiropractic practice. And I think that people know that we have stayed the course, and that's why we get so many recommendations and so many referrals. So if you guys find that you want to do business with a trusted resource in the chiropractic space, I would love to help you all out. So it's chirohustle.com. I'm going to go ahead and close out. Robert Ferguson is taken off from the City of Angels out in California, and I am taking off from Grand Junction, which is in the Grand Valley on the western slope of Colorado. And you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.